My name is Bryce Rackley,
I'm Jeremy Alberto.
and we're going to discuss Delphi Automotive along with their financial records, their stock over the last few months, along with the last several years, and potential employment and investment options with them or opportunities with them. Delphi Automotive was originally a part of General Motors. It started in 1994 as one of the branches. In 1999, they became an independent company and currently have approximately 150,000 employees, of which 20,000 are in the United States. It operates in 38 countries and produces auto parts for the largest automotive manufacturers in the world. Again, it manufactures parts for most systems in a vehicle. These include the controls and security, electronic architecture, entertainment and communications, powertrain, safety, and thermal controls.
Pretty much anything electronic, they make something for it.
Gauges, you name it, they do it. Along with the automotive industry itself, it was hit hard by the recession a few years ago. As a result of this, they had many plant closures where they only had about 5 or so left in the United States and Michigan and places like that. And as a result of all these closures, they had to go through Chapter 11 restructuring, which has caused them to have to sell off a lot of their non-core assets to sort of accommodate these changes that they needed to make. Here you can see the 2-month history of their stock between the beginning of the semester around October 3rd through the 2nd of December, just a couple days ago, just to keep it up to date. And you can see that in just how volatile it is here. You can see it reaching an all-time high of about $60.25 and all the way down to about $53.50. So that's a huge swing, about 12% from high to low in just about 2 weeks. So if you're looking for a short-term buck, you definitely don't want to look into Delphi Automotive. However, if you look at the bottom right, you can see their yearly trend, where it has steadily increased from around $35 all the way up to now about $58. So it's actually a pretty good option if you're looking into, something long-term where you can get a lot more out of it if you're willing just to invest your money and sit on it for a while and let it do its thing. Another positive thing about this large steady increase over the last year or so is that it means that this company is actually growing and will have a lot more employment opportunities. So this company is going to continue to grow and have a lot more spaces to fill in as they continue to expand and eventually reach the point where they had all those companies and plants that had to be closed during the recession.
All right, going to talk about a few of the financial ratios that we use to gauge the health of some companies. First one we have here is the current ratio. It's kind of a measurement of the ability for the company to repay their debts. So basically, it's just a measurement of their current assets and current liabilities, just a ratio of them. Right now, the industry, because they're just in general not doing so great, their current ratio is barely over 1, getting up to about 1.3 now that they're getting a little bit out of the recession era. But Delphi Automotive has been consistently in the 1.5 range because of their restructuring. They've been pretty conservative as of late, keeping enough money to pay their debts on hand. And related to the current ratio is the quick ratio. It's essentially the same, except it removes the effect of the inventories on your assets. It's the ability to quickly pay off your debts if you quickly needed to pay off anything. It's also a lot of times called the acid test. It's if a company is becoming insolvent, it's a pretty quick indicator of it. It should always be 1 or higher. If it's not 1 or higher, that means you can't pay off your short-term debts easily. And the industry standard, because they're not doing so well right now, is well below that 1. But Delphi has stayed pretty solidly above it, about 1.2. The return on assets, which is the net profit of the year divided by the total assets, is right now we could only find 1 year's data for the industry standard. That was about 12.85. Anything that we tried to find for previous years was behind a paywall. But Delphi's has been at a fairly comfortable level. You see in 2011 they were actually a bit higher than they have been the last 2 years. That's because in 2011 they divested a lot of their assets It was when they were getting rid of a lot of the companies that they felt were either unnecessary or just weren't producing. They kind of sold them off to other companies that either think that they can make a profit with them, or we're just going to take what little was left of them and get rid of them. So that year when they divested all their assets, it made their return on assets a little bit uncharacteristically high. The return on equity, which is the net income divided by the shareholders' equity in the company, has not been increasing. It's actually been declining lately. But that is because the equity and the stock price has been so consistently rising. The actual income has been rising as well, just not at the rate that the stock price and the equity has been rising. It's still significantly higher than the industry standard. It's in the 40s right now, as opposed to the industry right now, which is barely above 20 or even lower. The debt ratio, which is the total liabilities divided by the total assets, is currently about 75%. It's been there for a few years now. It's been steadily improving under the restructuring process. They've been a pretty conservative company this time, so they're trying to get back on track, get back to where they were before the recession. And the industry, surprisingly, has actually had an increase in their debt ratio in the years that we could find. We're not exactly sure why this is, but it seems to indicate that the industry as a whole is not recovering at the same rate that Delphi has been.
So in conclusion, some of the long-term trend of growth, like we talked about before, where over the long term, from the last year or so, September through September, they have actually continued to grow rather than some of the short-term stuff where if you look at it, it's all over the place, rising and lowering as much as 12% over a week. So again, if you want to invest, make sure you're trying to do it for the long term rather than trying to do something quick. Since the restructuring has begun, they have been showing very safe ratios, like we showed you before, the acid test or the quick ratio. They're able to liquidate really quickly and actually make a profit in a sense compared to some of the other companies that they're up against. Again, good for long term, not necessarily the short term. And this steady improvement over the year shows that it is a stable employment environment, meaning that if you get employed there, it's not just going to crash suddenly because of this continual increase. As well as the larger the company gets, the better chances it is that you will have more employment opportunities, able to move up, move over if you're not interested in where you are, and things of that sort.
Yeah, just in general, it's been a company that's benefited really well from our Chapter 11 bankruptcy restructuring process. They've really turned it around since the recession hit, and they've become a very conservative, lean, mean, moving machine. They're making money right now.
Yeah, I think that this company will definitely be around as long as vehicles are on the road and people are there to drive them.